So I'm someone who has very limited experience in the world of drugs and alcohol. To be honest, I don't really drink. I mean, you've probably seen me drink on live streams, but for the most part, I don't really drink. And if I'm honest, I've never been properly drunk. I've certainly been tipsy, and I've certainly been, the level of drunk where you slur your words a little bit and you feel comfortable talking to complete strangers. But I've never been like paralytic, can't remember what I did, drunk. And it's not because I have a high tolerance for alcohol, I certainly don't, but it's because I just don't like the idea of being out of control. And when I feel myself going that way, then I just stop drinking. I guess I have quite a good level of self-control in that regard. So it's something I've never really had a great interest in, especially drugs. That's something that I never really gave much thought to. But in the recent years, there seems to be more and more research into using things such as magic mushrooms, LSD, even ketamine for the treatment of depression. It seems there have been studies that are ongoing to see how well these drugs work when it comes to mental health issues. And it seems that there has been quite a lot of evidence to suggest that they could be used as treatment. Obviously, it will probably still take a very long time before they come to any kind of conclusion on that. But because of that, I started getting quite interested, and I started looking into it more and wondering if taking something like psilocybin would potentially be beneficial for me. But obviously, because the world of drugs is something I've never ventured into, it was something that I just wasn't quite sure how to go about. So I'd never even had marijuana before, and as I was doing my research and thinking about potentially trying psilocybin or magic mushrooms, I thought, well, maybe it would be a good idea to try out with something a little less extreme, I guess. So it was a few months ago now. I had the opportunity to try edibles. They had been made for somebody else for pain relief, but they weren't quite doing the job, so I was offered the rest of these edibles, and I figured I might as well give them a go. Also, at this point, I didn't realise there was a difference between edibles and smoking weed. I didn't know that the effect would be different, and I didn't realise that the timing would be different, because obviously when you smoke it, it's a pretty instant thing, whereas when you eat it, it takes longer to get into your system. So I did a little bit of research first. I read up on edibles and kind of what to expect. I'd always heard that you start off small with edibles. I think it was Naboo in the Mighty Boosh who gave some good advice on that. And yeah, I'd heard that the experience of edibles was more intense than smoking it, and that the high you get from edibles lasts a lot longer. It can last up to 8 hours, apparently. So yeah, I'd done my reading about it, and I was prepared to go for it. Now I know it was only weed, but obviously, as I said, these things I've never done before, so I wanted to be prepared. As well as that, I was obviously aware of weed having an effect on people who are prone to psychosis. So obviously, I was concerned about how it might make my symptoms worse, and I didn't want to do that. I wasn't sure if that was dependent on the method of taking it, or if marijuana, regardless of how you take it, could make hallucinations worse. So, I knew I had to start small, but as someone who likes food, what's small? My idea of small isn't going to be small. And so I probably had half of this edible. They were in cookies. So I guess I had maybe like half a cookie. And I just kind of sat around and I waited. I'd heard that it could take anywhere up to like 2 hours for it to kick in. So, I wasn't really sure what to do whilst I was waiting. I ended up going for a walk. And as I was walking, I didn't feel anything at all. But I got home and it was probably about 40 minutes since I'd eaten it. And I decided to lay down on my bed and listen to binaural beats, just because I wanted something to kind of clear my mind, and I find that binaural beats does that. So I laid down on my bed and I was listening to them, and I started getting this sort of weird sensation in my body. It felt like my body was lifting through the air, and it got progressively faster and faster, to the point where it felt like gravity was really strong, like gravity was like pushing me back onto my bed. And it wasn't a bad sensation, it felt weird, and I just kind of, observed it and let it happen. And maybe after about 5 minutes it started to feel a bit uncomfortable. And I was looking around my room, and I was looking outside of my window, and it was still light outside, but it was quite grey. It was a bit miserable, really. And it felt like I wasn't really looking outside. It felt like my window was more like a computer screen with like an artificial light shining into my room. And I kind of got this sensation that my room was the only thing that existed, that if I went outside the door there'd be nothing but space, that there was really nothing else behind these walls. As I said, looking out my window, I wasn't really looking outside, it was just a computer screen. And it was it just felt like it was just me and my room. Now, obviously, I realised that that wasn't true. I didn't believe that, but that was the kind of feeling of it. And it wasn't a bad feeling, it wasn't a good feeling, it was different. Then when I sat up and I was kind of looking around, I got this sensation that I was wearing like a VR headset, and I was looking at my hands and I was looking around me, and everything just looked amazing, like really vivid, kind of similar to sometimes when you're having a lucid dream, it's almost like the visuals are hyper realistic more than they would be if you were actually awake. And I was looking at my hands, I was thinking, oh, the graphics are really good. Then I started to panic, because it suddenly hit me that, okay, I can't take these VR goggles off. It's not like they're actually on me and I can take them off. I have to basically allow this to happen. I have no control over this. And I started to really freak out. And, I was messaging people who I know, online, people who are used to taking drugs, trying to get them to calm me down a little bit and talk me through it. Again, it wasn't like a bad sensation, but it was this sudden realisation that I can't control this, I can't stop this, and if this is going to go on for 8 hours, I basically have to surrender control. And for me that was the scariest thing, surrendering control. As I said, I've never allowed myself to get properly drunk because I'm that kind of obsessed with being in control. And then the weirdest thing happened, where I heard Sid, who's one of the voices I hear. I suddenly heard him, and I heard him, he just told me to just relax, ride it out, it'll be over when it's over, it's not going to last forever, just sit back, relax, it'll be okay. And that was it, he was gone. And it kind of calmed me down to think that, to hear that, and to know that, ultimately it was going to end. Oh, my hair's annoying me. So what I ended up doing was I just put on like Arrested Development and I let that play in the background. It was hard to watch because it was like if I moved my eyes ever so slightly, the whole room kind of like wobbled. So, you know, even though I'm just watching the telly, obviously my eyes are going to be moving around to see different characters or whatever. But that was hard because everything would just wobble. And it was like my room was... It was weird because my room was solid, but at the same time it was almost like in sections, like there were different layers. And I remember having this feeling that I was moving through time. Again, really bizarre. I was aware that I was only ever in my room, but I kept getting these sensations like I was jumping through time. Like at one point I felt very much like a little kid again. And I even, you know, had RaRa with me, the real RaRa rabbit. And I was just kind of like holding on to him whilst watching Arrested Development. And I remember I closed my eyes for a little while and it just felt like me and RaRa were just floating in space. I had my lamp on, and so you know, with my eyes closed I could see sort of a yellow light from my lamp, and it felt like that was the sun. So me and RaRa were just chilling out in space with the sun. So this went on for maybe about 2 hours. I did fall asleep because it was really powerful stuff. I would say I fell asleep for maybe about an hour and a half, and after that, when I woke up, I felt a lot more sober, I suppose. Still very much, you know, feeling the effects, just kind of feeling a bit floaty and kind of chilled out. Sorry. But yeah, those first 2 hours were pretty intense and very interesting. I also drew a picture of like a weird kind of wooden bird man. Just a little sketch, but I'm actually going to draw him properly at some point, I think, because it was kind of cool. That was like I wanted to see if like I got any good ideas whilst I was high. And so after that, with the rest of the cookies, I didn't have as much. You know, I'd just have like a quarter maybe, or even less than that. And I didn't have that level, that intensive an experience. Again, the rest of my experience was more just really chilled out. You know, feeling kind of happy almost. I remember, you know, I'd had some, and I was laying on the floor, kind of huddled up in my duvet cover. I thought something was on me. Watching my partner play Sonic Mania, and it was just thinking like, this is really nice. It's just nice, you know. And everything just, I don't know, everything just felt really good, and I didn't feel anxious. That's what I enjoyed. The fact that my anxiety kind of disappeared, that I wasn't overthinking, I was just living, I was allowing things to happen, and I didn't, like, that for me was brilliant that the overthinking stopped, because my brain just does not shut up. And also, weirdly, how I only heard Sid the once, and I heard no other voices. My brain was surprisingly quiet, and again that confused me because, you know, of all the things that I'd heard about weed making psychotic symptoms worse, you know, I found that interesting. And I even a little while later went online on my various Facebook groups, and, you know, I was talking about this experience, and I was asking how other people, you know, with kind of psychotic disorders, you know, how they found, you know, having well, not just edibles, but weed in general. And a surprising number of people actually said that it helped them, and it actually helped their symptoms, and they actually heard voices less. So that was an interesting thing, definitely, that people have, you know, had that kind of experience. So yeah, and as well, I found that I did have a lot of good ideas, but I was so tired, because you know, obviously it relaxes you. So I was too tired to actually draw any of the things that I thought of, or you know, which was a shame. But I've still kind of got those ideas. I just need to do something with them. But yeah, totally sorted out my anxiety, because at the time I was waking up in like just blind panic, and that wasn't happening, which was really good. So yeah, you know, I ended up finishing those cookies off, and I haven't had any since. Just mainly because I don't know anybody who could help me out there. But yeah, really interesting, and again, it's made me think more about, you know, the potential for certain drugs when it comes to mental health. I mean, I know that weed's a bit of a weird one, because you know, there is that for some people it makes them paranoid, for some people it makes their anxiety worse, for some people it is you know, it has caused psychosis, for some people, you know, it's triggered psychosis off in people. So there's obviously negatives to it, and you know, I know a lot of people really preach how it's this amazing medicinal drug, and you know, I don't doubt that it obviously does have a great deal of medicinal value, but at the same time I don't think it's like a miracle cure everything sort of drug. So yeah, I'm not like promoting it, and I'm not saying that there aren't any negatives to it. I'm just basically saying my experience with that. So yeah, and I guess that's probably all I have to really say on that. Why I had such an intense experience, I don't know, because it was almost like a psychedelic experience. It was almost what I imagine taking an actual psychedelic drug would be like. But edibles tend to have a more intense effect, so maybe that's why, or maybe I have no idea. I have no idea. But I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I've been Max, aka the RaRa Rabbit. I'll see you in the next video.